Christine, remember when you were a kid and you thought that your career was going to be this like perfect straight line trajectory?
Oh my, yes. That is not at all what happened. It ended up being way more of a squiggle than I could have ever imagined. And I am so happy that I embraced all of the squiggles along the way.
Hey, Christine, how's it going?
Good, Colleen. It's nice to be back here with you bantering.
It is.
My
It
favorite.
is.
Yes, but I do love our banter. Probably a little bit more.
100%. And, today we weren't planning on bantering, but then we started bantering after we just recorded another session and decided this is golden. And so we need to just hop on and record this. And so here we go. So many things to talk about today. And I think we're starting with Taylor Swift because we both started having conversations about two parts. If you live under a rock and you did not hear about the New Heights podcast that she was on,
welcome to Planet Earth.
Welcome to Planet Earth. And so Taylor was on the podcast for 2 hours. And there were two pieces that we really want to get into today. So I'm going to let you start with yours that you brought up, and then I'll jump into mine after. So let's jump into yours.
The one that I brought up in another conversation that we were having was around lessons learned and paying that forward in life. And I'm not sure that enough people out there are comfortable with sharing their wisdom. It does take a lot of courage to find your voice and to speak out. And, the piece around Taylor buying back her master's, I mean, this was a huge deal for her. And the emotion, the raw, authentic emotion that she showed when she got choked up, how deep this really cut. And, it was really what landed for me that is sort of tied to what you and I are doing as entrepreneurs and coaches and speakers and all of that, is the piece around paying forward lessons learned so that other people have the information available to them. They can ask questions, they can do research, they can reflect on what exactly is important to them. And this is in the context, of course, for those that didn't listen to the episode, in context to, are your masters important? What do you want to negotiate? What do you want to be having written into your contracts as perhaps a younger, early career artist? And it made me really think about what I'm doing in terms of the leadership development and, the relational trauma work that I do. And it really is coming from a place of the lessons I've learned, the journey I've had, the leaders I've had, and being able to pay that forward to other people, not just through my coaching clients, speaking engagements, and especially our podcast. I guess my invitation to our listeners is think about the lessons that you've learned and the experiences that you've had. Now, I'm not saying you need to go and launch a podcast or become a certified coach. What are ways that you can share in conversation, on social media, whatever it looks like? Because I can guarantee you that you have a golden nugget that just might change the life of someone else.
And one of the parts I particularly loved about that part of the New Heights podcast was when Taylor was saying, I want to put this stuff out there. I want people to hear what I went through, right? I want people to understand what these contracts are and what they're signing and what it holds for the future. And then she added, so they can make their own decision that is right for them. Right. I loved that here she is, right? The top pop star at the moment, right? Crazy, amazing concerts, right? Probably did more for the U.S. economy than any of our last 5 presidents, right?
The world economy.
Right. The world economy as well. And right here she is saying, you don't have to go do it my way. Right. Because most people in her position would be like, hey, look what I did. Here's my path. follow it exactly and you'll get where I am. And she's not saying that at all. She was saying, listen, right, here's the lessons I learned.
Yeah.
And you know what? It'd be really, these are things that you should think about. And I feel like as coaches, this is what we're saying to our clients often is things like, hey, here's something to really think about if you're going to go down that path. Now, you
Yes.
still get to choose which way you go, right? Our job as coaches is not to dictate the way our, clients go. It's much more about here are the possibilities and choose what's best for you. And I really
Yeah.
loved that perspective that she brought in and saying, right, this is what made sense for me. This is what was originally in my contract. This is what was different. And here are the things I had no idea her first album came out, she was 16. So she signed that
Mhm.
contract at 15.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I'm sure her parents looked at it and I'm sure her lawyers looked at it and everyone thought this is great because no one thought of it back then in the same
But
way.
like but like any industry, things change.
Right.
So what was right for her at 16 or 15, 16 is not right for her at 35.
5?
And I was just thinking too as you were talking, this is something that she said this was a goal of hers. She was like, I don't know how I'm gonna get there, but I know I'm not gonna die without it.
Yep.
And she has been, smart and strategic. And now, and she talked about and revealed all of the, her fun that she has with the Easter eggs. So now that I'm thinking about it, the Eras Tour, sh I wonder, she set out on this billion-trillion-dollar, tour, which she didn't know it was gonna generate what it generated. But really that set her up to be able to buy back the music.
Oh,
And so,
yes. And I'm
right?
so
Or at
happy to have contributed to that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, exactly. I did not contribute. I went and saw the movie,
So you still
and
contributed by the movie.
I did. I bought the movie. I listened to the music. I streamed the music,
Yeah.
for sure. So I am paying into her royalties. But here's, she didn't know it was gonna actually allow her to buy it back. She thought that, here's my plan to buy back my music. So I'm gonna go out on tour. And, it could have been 2 or 3 tours. It could have been 2 or 3 albums. It could have been,
Right.
math, any way you wanna slice it. And yet here she was, laying the foundation to achieve that goal, and
The other part of it that I loved was how she knew who she was dealing with. And so she didn't send her lawyers to negotiate it.
right?
She sent her mom and her brother.
I know.
Right? Because she said, I knew who this was and I needed them to hear what this meant to me. And so, I think about this from every day in our lives, right? I think about this when I coach people to ask for a raise at work. And I always say, right, think about who your manager is. How do they approach things?
Your audience.
Right? Know your audience. And when you know your audience, you can approach it
Yes.
in a way that not only is going to make sense for them and make sense for you, but it's also going to be much more successful.
Well, you know what buzzword comes up in every coaching conversation, especially with new clients, is influence. I need to change that word. But anyway, I need to influence. It's about as buzzy as authenticity. And yet, that is one of the things that I always, always coach to is, and as I'm poking and peeling away the onion in terms of, okay, well, why is it that you're not moving the needle on certain things? It comes down to a lack of knowledge of their audience. And so here is another perfect example of influence through storytelling, through emotion. And, the other thing that comes to mind in terms of my coaching, and I know you can relate to this in terms of many profiles you've coached over the years, where especially women come and they're hardened and they've got the ego and I got to be all these things, that's how I'm going to get to where I am, or that's how I got to where I am. And I know for me, I do a lot of coaching to connect head back to heart. And how do you be be both in terms of your leadership persona. And she is absolutely not leading from ego. She's really leading. She's leading from heart, yet, the thinking mind is absolutely playing a role in how she's managing her business, how she's influencing to buy back, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And, it's learning to be more than one thing at once.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was such an incredible story for her to get there.
It really is.
Right. All right. So the other piece that came up for me in it, and the minute I heard her say it, I was like, oh, this is going to be the thing that goes viral from this, right? Which was her, your energy is too expensive and not everybody can afford it. And right, right. And you and I have talked so much about folks finding jobs where they gain energy from it. Because if you're at a place and every ounce of your energy is getting sucked and you have no energy left for the rest of your life, and I don't care if that's playing with your kids, playing with a dog, if you're baking sourdough like Taylor Swift is, or, right, you're sewing baby blankets, right? Like, I don't care what it is, but
it matter.
But if your job is sucking the life out of you and you have no energy, then it is the wrong job for you.
In the wrong place.
Right.
And vice versa. For me, I mean, of course I need a day to recalibrate and to, I don't know, do laundry, do whatever. I know if I go too long without people connection and people contact, that's a problem for me and my energy reserves.
Yep.
Because, I mean, we'll just call it extroverted versus introverted characteristics. I have extroverted characteristics. And so, yes, absolutely, my energy gets strained doing, depends on kind of what I'm doing. I know right now I said to you last week that I was running low on energy, and I know that it's very much holding space for not just my clients, but also a family member. And I was feeling the effects. And then I had some downtime, and then I was feeling the effects of that. And I was like, I need to go for Sunday night dinner at my sister's and, get a little injection of energy. And I certainly did. And, and I'm feeling much more recharged today. But you have to know how to manage your energy.
Right.
And your energy is leaking, or people, you've got people in your life where it is sucking your energy. It's, it's also reflecting back on what boundary needs to be put in place.
Oh, yeah.
And I noticed a boundary missing last week in a relationship that I have. And I had to make a shift. I made a big shift. And I tell you, it was one of the most uncomfortable things that I think I have ever done. And I had to sit in that discomfort. And that was like killing me on different levels. And yet I know for the long run, it was the best move to make sure that my energy doesn't continue to leak in that direction. And my wish is that it actually will strengthen this relationship that I have. And so all I can do is time will tell. So yes, I think a lot of people do not realize that energy has a price tag.
Yeah. And I think people will say, oh, I'm just burnt out, right? I just need a week vacation. And it's like, if things are sucking your energy and they're always sucking your energy, then you have to make a change. Right. And I get that that's hard. I get that most people hate squiggling. Most people hate change. But I, constantly am saying to folks, like, isn't it worse to just be stuck? Isn't it worse to be stuck in the place where you're exhausted and you're drained every day, where this is just sucking your energy away? So,
it's when you get to that point, notice the emotions that are showing up. Frustration, resentment, anger. I don't know, just saying, throwing those out there.
Yep.
If that's what's showing up for you, my first question is what values are being compromised and what boundaries are missing. because your needs aren't being met, and it's, and it could be energy leakage, because I certainly, like, I know when I start to feel my inside shifting or getting a little spicy, that's my first cue to stop and, like, really hone in on what it is, and sometimes it is letting my energy leak in the wrong direction.
Yep.
Or I shouldn't say wrong direction, in a direction that is not serving me in that moment.
Right. And sometimes we're stuck. I get it, right? There are times I've been stuck in jobs that didn't work. I've been stuck in a rut for many
Yeah.
things in my life, right? And
Yeah.
if you feel stuck at the moment, right? If you are one of those folks who is in that moment where you feel like your energy is going out, there's two things that I recommend people do. One is to just track your energy over the course of a week.
It's a good
Right?
one.
If you can, over a month, if you really want to. But when I mean by tracking it, like, I want you at the end of the day to say, do I have any energy left? Right? Give yourself a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, like whatever makes sense for you. And then think about what you did that day and write it down. Because my guess is you will quickly start seeing the patterns of the days that you are energized and the days that you are exhausted.
I'm gonna add who. I'm gonna add who to your list.
Yes. Yes. So what are you doing? Who are you with?
Who are
Right?
you with?
Because it can be a person who is sucking your energy dry as well.
100%. Wednesday last week, I was exhausted. And then I went out on my bike and I was like with some teammates who totally energized me and they're fun. And oh my God, I got home and I was like, my bucket was full.
Right. Right.
And really was the who that, I went and hung out with for an hour and a half at the park.
Yeah.
And played, right? So it's the who and the what and the where.
And the other piece, and you brought up the boundaries a few times. I love one of the workshops I lead is called Build Your Boundaries, right? And we talk about how do you figure out what's important to you. And we do it with Lego bricks, which is always really fun. But I think, right, if you can start thinking about what do you want to protect, right? What are the things that are important to you that you need to protect, that you want to protect? Because if you don't have boundaries, right, part of it often is because you don't even know what you would want to put the boundaries up around, right? So you have to start thinking about what are my boundaries? What are the things? What are the times? What are the, I don't care. What are the meetings? What are the people? What are the going out on your bike ride with your teammates because it energizes you, right? That piece. The other piece I coach people through is on, we are all not going to have jobs that energize us for all 40 hours a week or however many hours a week you're working, right? I love what I do. I'm an entrepreneur. I get to dictate what I do. Are there still parts of my job that it like, ugh?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Right? There are still some of those tasky things that I'm like, ugh. But what I've learned over time to do and what I coach people to do is to try to do those things early in the day. So that way I end the day on the things that do give me energy. And when I finish work, I actually have energy to do the rest of my life, to live the rest of my life, to go on the bike ride. For me, it's to go throw pottery, right? I don't want to be so exhausted at the end of the day that all I want to do is just lay on the couch and, watch endless reruns of whatever it is I'm watching.
Yes. And if that's for me, I was napping a lot and I was like, okay, I know that I do need, I needed the nap to, I'm tired, I'm training, I'm coaching a lot. And so I was like, okay, I do need a little bit of extra naps. The other piece that just came up for me as I was listening to you is we talk about kind of I'm going to put it in the context of strengths, right? We talk about how we need to be leveraging our strengths the majority of our day. And then, of course, there's areas of development or strengths that are a little bit further down the list that might come into play. But what we don't want to be doing is leveraging those areas of development more higher percentage of our time during our day.
Yeah, or the strengths that are at the bottom, right? I always tell folks there are strengths that you just don't have. They're not even
Yeah.
areas of development. They are things that you don't have because something's always at the bottom. And
Right.
so,
And
right, if you are spending your whole day in those,
that's a red flag
right,
to consider. Like, are you, again, are you in the right job?
right,
Here, I love it. We could go on and on and on.
yes,
It's really just around giving yourself permission. We have to learn, and that's courageous. It's a courageous move to put yourself first. And to say, like, it's okay to say, this is not working for me. I know when I work with clients and, I ask about what boundaries missing. I have many clients that say to me, I don't actually have boundaries. And that's okay, because guess what? That's a starting point. Just acknowledging and bringing that into awareness. I'm laughing. That's terrible, but it's so true. I mean, I lived a life of no boundaries. So, I mean, oh my God, I don't even know how I made it here. Like, I look back and I think, God, with love of Pete, like, talk
right.
about being an autopilot. It's like, wow, how I made it to 2025. Don't know.
And again,
But
I also think, right, there's a balance there because there were times that if I had thrown up boundaries like I refuse to, I don't know, right? No, I won't do that for work. I won't do that at night or I won't do that weekend. Then I likely would not have had that job, right? There are times that, right, you have to weigh these things. And so then it's deciding, do I stay here or do I leave? Because not every job is going to work for every person and not every job's going to work for every phase of your life, right?
well, and that's the thing about boundaries that I find people also don't understand is that boundaries aren't rigid. They're not like a garage door that closes,
Right.
or a brick wall. Then they are, boundaries are dynamic and you get to choose what the boundary is, what it looks like, what it feels like. And it could certainly be different for every person. Like, you might hold a boundary with me that looks like vastly different with your daughter
Yep.
or your neighbor. And so knowing that, and again, if we tie energy into it, like, some days that boundary is going to be, today's not a good day. And then some days that boundary is going to be like, I'm good to go at 3 o'clock
Right.
or, whatever it is. But, again, knowing that you have full control over that boundary and how you want it to show up in your life, really, like, every day, every moment of every day. And what you think you need at 9 a.m. might not actually be what you need by 2.
Yep.
And so, knowing that everything A is impermanent and B, looking at the things that you can control so that you are at your best.
Right. And I think for folks listening, also understanding that there are consequences to boundaries, right? If you put a hard boundary up with someone, the consequence may be that they are no longer your friend, right?
And that's
And I think at work, um, I have a friend who is a manager at a pretty large company, and she had a brand new employee say to her, like, no, I won't do that. That's below me.
oh,
And she was like, "Yeah,
well,
well,
see,
that's how we work here, right? Like, we all chip in and do all of the things." And this person was like, "No, it's just not something I want to do." And she was like, "Okay, well, then you have the option to no longer work here." Right? And she said, she couldn't believe she said it because she said, 10 years ago she wouldn't have said that, but she said, "Listen, this is what the job is." Right? Like, and so you do have the option to put that boundary up, but also know that there's a chance if you put a certain boundary up, you may not longer have that friend, you may no longer have that job. Uh, you are welcome to put that boundary up. So think about what makes most sense for you and what you need at that time. Because are there times that I do things that make my boundaries move? Yep, there are because of whatever it is going on in my life, right? It may be that I need the money. It may be that I'm trying to give somebody a second or a third chance. One of our podcast guests I met for lunch a couple of weeks ago, and she actually said to me that um, she had a friend, someone who she thought was a friend, right? But who regularly did not respond when she texted them, when she emailed them. And after a couple of months of this, she finally was like, I don't have time for this person in my life. Right? I don't have time to be the one who's always reaching out and not getting a response.
Yeah. I've had people like that in my life. Yep.
Right.
I certainly know. Oh, I can empathize with that. Huge. That's tied to the boundary from last week, let me tell you.
Right. So it makes us make those decisions.
Yeah, it does. It does. It does. And, it takes, it is vulnerable to express what you need. And I find, like, if I tie it to the beginning of this conversation, or not the beginning of the conversation, but when we shifted to talking about energy, it is very much for me, it's like, how much energy do I want to invest and how do I want to invest it? And, let's bring Mel Robbins in. Now I'm like, let them not respond.
Right.
It is what it is. And I always, the other piece too is that we all have choice. And so I look at it now, and if I don't get a response, that was their choice. And I'm okay with,
Right. And then you have the choice of whether or not you reach out again.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so many great things that Taylor brought up for all of us this week.
I know. I actually haven't finished listening to the whole thing, only because I've kept having to go back because it's just so rich, full of, for me, just like a lot of, number one, getting to know her on a different level. And number two, there were just so many reminders, and actually I felt a little bit validated. I was like, oh, I'm on the right track as a human. I'm on the right track as a coach. I'm on the right track in terms of a few things that are, in behind the scenes in terms of just what's going on in my life right now. I'm like, I'm on the right track. I'm on the right track.
You are.
So.
I think we both are. I feel like this past 2 years, it's just been this upward trajectory. And did it squiggle? Yeah. Absolutely. I feel like every month I'm always like, oh, wait, left turn, right turn, up, down, all over. Right. And we just kind of keep squiggling our way, but it keeps making forward progress.
Well, somebody said something to me about me squiggling, and I can't even remember the context, but my response back was, I actually don't know. This is going to be a really badly constructed sentence. I don't know how to not squiggle.
Right.
If I'm not squiggling, it actually is a place of discomfort.
Right. And I feel like there's not a lot of us in this world who love the squiggle, right? Who love the change. But for me, if I was doing the exact same thing day after day, week after week, year after year, I'd be bored to tears, right? I would say I would be the worst widget factory employee. Right. Don't ever do not make me do the same thing every day, all day. So
no,
every week, every month, I'm always like, oh, here's this new shiny object that I can look at and look at possibilities.
And it's just possibilities. It's just being open to possibilities. I know sometimes some people were like, whoa, stop chasing the shiny object. Doing it from a place of what's the possibility and curiosity. It's so healthy. And I know I'm squiggling this year, and I'm finding my way in terms of my own business, shutting some things down and looking at really focusing more on speaking and all that kind of stuff. What does my next squiggle look like? Because I get really bored. I get super bored too. And I know that that's a personality, Gemini, all the woo-woo things I read about. I'm like, oh yeah, that's me for sure. But you got to keep it exciting, and you got to keep it, I don't know. I just am all about squiggling. Just no nonlinear bullshit for me.
Well, this has been...
Stop. I got to change this up. This is not working for me. So this is what I need now.
Which was literally what we just did today, right? Because we didn't plan on recording an episode today, but we just started talking, and I was like, you know what? The world needs to hear this. They need to hear this. So
we need to do this more often, Colleen, because we do banter and not hit record. And,
so you're all lucky today that we hit record. So
For all of you who are new to listening to Colleen and I, we have a lot to share.
We do. Well,
Yeah,
thanks for
I
being
love it.
willing to jump on and banter with me today, Christine. This has been
Oh,
fun.
never turn down that opportunity. That is for sure. I've got some hot topics that I've been writing down, so there'll be more banter from us.
Excellent. Well, if you enjoyed us today, please go leave us a rating or review. Now on Spotify, you can actually leave a review or you can leave comments for individual episodes, which is new. So if you're listening on Spotify, go ask us a question or give us some comments there. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, just leave us a review. We really appreciate them.
We do. We do. We're slowly moving up the charts, my friends.
Every week, a little bit higher. Well,
Yeah.
thanks, Christine. Have a great day now.
Thanks, Colleen. You too.
Go listen to some Taylor Swift.
Oh, I'm going to.
Is it time for you to add a little squiggle to your career? Join us every week to hear from another guest talk about how they embrace the squiggle.
Subscribe now and find your inspiration.